The bus smelled like diesel and someone's leftover fast food. I had my backpack on my knees because the overhead rack felt too far away from me. Everything I still owned was in there. 2 changes of clothes, a toothbrush, deodorant, phone charger that didn't do me any good right now. The phone in my pocket had died somewhere outside Sparks, and I didn't have a way to charge it until I got where I was going. If I got where I was going. I pressed my forehead against the window. Cold glass, dark desert rolling past. A few scattered lights way out there, probably ranch houses or maybe just towers with blinking reds on top. Hard to tell. The highway cut straight through nothing and the bus engine hummed steady under all of it. My wallet was in my front pocket. I'd checked it twice already since Reno. Still there. Still had the cash folded inside, $412. Last of the severance pay. The company had called it severance, but really it was just 2 weeks' worth of hours they owed me anyway. I would have argued about it, except I didn't have the energy and I needed the money more than I needed to be right. That was back in September. It was November now. I shifted the backpack and watched my reflection in the window. Looked tired. I was tired. Hadn't slept much the last week, just a couple nights on my buddy Rick's couch before he said his girlfriend was getting uncomfortable with me being there. Can't blame her. I would have been uncomfortable too. The bus slowed down and I sat up straighter. Checked the darkness outside for lights, for anything that looked like a town. Just highway. Just a turn. We took it and picked up speed again and I made myself breathe out slow. Not Fallon yet. I'd counted 4 stops so far. Reno, then Sparks, then 2 little places I didn't catch the names of. Fallon was next. Had to be. The temp coordinator, Doris, had said the bus made 6 stops total between Reno and Fallon, and the job site was right outside Fallon proper. She'd written it all down on the paper she gave me. I had that paper in my backpack, but I didn't need to check it again. I'd read it maybe 20 times already. The woman across the aisle was asleep with her head against a rolled-up jacket. Guy, a few rows up, had earbuds in and kept nodding along to whatever he was listening to. Driver hadn't said anything in over an hour. It was just the engine and the road and the dark pressing in on both sides. I thought about the forklift job a lot. Didn't mean to, but it kept coming back. I'd been good at it, steady, showed up on time, never damaged product, kept my certifications current. Didn't matter. When corporate decided to consolidate the warehouse with the one in Sacramento, they cut 2/3 of the crew. I was in the last group hired, so I was in the first group gone. That was it. No warning, just a meeting in the break room, an envelope with a check in it. I'd lasted 3 weeks before I couldn't make rent. Talked to the landlord, asked if I could go half now and half when I found something. He said no, I got it. He had his own bills. I moved my stuff into my car, a 2004 Civic that burned oil and had a crack across the windshield, but it ran. I parked it at a truck stop off 80 most nights. Bought food from the attached diner. Looked for work during the day. Applied everywhere. Warehouses, retail, landscaping crews, anything. Got a few callbacks. Did 2 interviews. One place said they'd let me know. The other one said they went with someone else. I never heard back from the first one. The car got repossessed in October. I'd missed 2 payments. They hooked it up from the truck stop parking lot while I was inside using the bathroom. Came back out and it was just gone. I stood there for probably 5 minutes before I really believed it. Had my backpack with me, thank God. Everything else was in the car. A box of books, some tools, a sleeping bag. All gone. Rick let me sleep on his couch after that. I tried to make myself useful. Cleaned up, bought groceries when I had a few bucks, stayed out of the way. His girlfriend, Amanda, was polite about it, but I could tell. It was her place too, and I was this random guy taking up space in her living room. After a week and a half, she started making comments. Not mean ones, just little things. Must be nice to sleep in. I'd been up since 6 looking for work on Rick's laptop, but I didn't say anything. Few days later, Rick pulled me aside and said maybe I should check with some other friends. I didn't have other friends. Not ones I could ask anyway. I went to the temp agency on a Tuesday, filled out paperwork, answered questions. Doris, the coordinator, looked at my resume and nodded a lot but didn't say much. I figured that was it. Just another dead end. Then she asked if I was willing to relocate for work. I said yeah, didn't even ask where. She said they had a security contract out near Fallon, federal site. Needed bodies for a 6-month rotation. Room and board included, pay was $15 an hour. They'd take anyone with a clean record who could pass a background check. I told her I could do that. She made a call, came back 10 minutes later and said I was in. Gave me the paper with all the details. Bus route, stop location, contact name. Told me to be on the 6:15 from Reno on November 8th. That was yesterday. I slept outside the bus station the night before. Didn't want to risk missing it. 15 an hour wasn't great, but it was steady. 6 months of steady was something I could build on, and room and board meant no rent, no utilities, no groceries eating up my pay. I could save most of it, get back on my feet, maybe buy another car, find a real apartment after the contract ended. It felt possible. First time in a while something felt possible. I kept looking out the window, checked every shadow, every distant light. The anxiety sat right in the center of my chest, just under my ribs. It had been there since Reno, since before that, really. I couldn't miss this stop. If I missed Fallon, I didn't know what I'd do. The paper said someone named Jim would be waiting in a Bureau of Reclamation van. If I wasn't there, he wouldn't wait. Doris had been real clear about that. They ran the pickup once a week. Miss it, and the contract went to someone else. I didn't have a phone to call anyone, didn't have money for a hotel, didn't have a backup plan. This was it. The bus slowed again. I sat up, saw lights this time, actual building lights, street lights, the glow of a town coming up ahead. My heart kicked harder. I pressed closer to the window. We rolled past a gas station. Closed. Then a couple houses set back from the road. Then a cross street with a blinking yellow traffic light. The bus turned and I saw a sign lit up on the side of the road. Fallon. Population 8,000 something. I didn't catch the full number. The tension in my chest pulled tighter. This was it. This was the stop. I grabbed my backpack and stood up before the bus even started braking. The driver glanced at me in the big mirror up front, but didn't say anything. We pulled into a small lot next to a dark building, maybe an old visitor center or something. There were 2 other cars parked there and a van with government plates. Bureau of Reclamation, painted right on the side. The bus hissed to a stop. I was already moving down the aisle. The door folded open and I stepped out into the cold November air. Desert cold, dry and sharp. I could see my breath. The van's headlights were on. Someone was sitting in the driver's seat. I walked toward it. My boots sounded loud on the pavement. The backpack felt heavier than it had on the bus. I stopped a few feet from the driver's side window, and the guy inside looked at me. Older, maybe 50. Weathered face, canvas jacket. He rolled the window down. "You Hudson Bates?" "Yeah," I said. "Jim Fuller. Toss your bag in the back and get in." I did. Didn't ask questions. Didn't hesitate. I walked around to the passenger side, climbed in, pulled the door shut. The van was warm, heater running full blast. Smelled like coffee and dust. Jim put the van in gear and we pulled out of the lot. I'd made it. I was here. This job, whatever it turned out to be, I was going to make it work. I didn't have another option. I couldn't fall through the cracks. Not again. I stared out at the dark desert ahead of us and felt the determination settle in next to the anxiety. I'd do whatever this contract needed. 6 months. I just had to make it 6 months. The Fallon temp office was in a strip mall between a laundromat and a tax place that looked like it hadn't been open in years. I got there around 9 in the morning after sleeping maybe 3 hours on a bench outside a closed library 2 blocks away. My back hurt and my mouth tasted sour, but I had my backpack and all my paperwork, and I was on time. That was what mattered. Inside smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. The front area had 4 plastic chairs, a water cooler, and a corkboard covered in safety posters about forklift operation and workplace harassment. Nobody else was waiting. A woman sat behind a desk with a partition made of frosted glass. She had blonde hair and rectangular glasses, and a name badge that said Doris Gomez. "Hudson Bates," I said. She looked up from her computer. "You're early." "Yeah." "Sit. I'll call you when I'm ready." I sat in one of the plastic chairs. It was the kind that's supposed to stack, but one of the legs didn't quite touch the floor, so it rocked a little when I shifted my weight. I kept my backpack on my lap. There was a magazine on the chair next to me, some hunting thing from 2 years ago. I didn't pick it up. Just sat there watching Doris type and click her mouse and write something on a pad of paper with a pen that had a chewed cap. After maybe 15 minutes, she said, "Hudson." I stood and walked over. She had a folder open on the desk in front of her, a couple of printed pages inside. One of them looked like the form I'd filled out at the Reno agency. "ID and social security card," she said. I pulled my wallet out and handed both over. She looked at them for longer than I expected, comparing my face to the license photo, then typed something into her computer. She wrote my social security number on a yellow sticky note and peeled it off, sticking it to the folder. "Background check came back clean," she said. "No arrests, no warrants, no flags. Okay. Contract starts today. 6 months firm, no early separation without forfeiting your room deposit and last check. Paychecks are bi-weekly, direct deposit only. You have a bank account?" I did. Barely. Hadn't closed it yet, even though the balance was something like $11. "Yeah." "Write the routing and account number here." She slid a form across the desk and tapped a blank line with her pen. I wrote it down from memory, routing number first, then account. My handwriting looked shaky. I pressed harder with the pen to make it clearer. Doris took the form back and clipped it into the folder. 15 per hour, room and board covered. Meals are your responsibility, but there's a kitchen and a commissary delivery every 2 weeks. You can order basics. They'll deduct it from your check. Got it. This contract is strict, she said. She was looking right at me now, not at the computer or the folder. You leave early, you forfeit pay. You fail a drug test, you're terminated immediately with no severance. You violate site security protocols, same thing, understand? Yeah. The site supervisor has full discretion. If she says you're done, you're done. No appeals, no complaints to us. You signed the waiver in Reno. I didn't actually remember a waiver, but I'd signed a lot of papers that day. Probably one of them. Okay. You get injured on the job, workers' comp applies, but only if you followed posted procedures. If you go off script and hurt yourself, that's on you. I nodded. She pulled another sheet from the folder and turned it toward me. It was a single paragraph in small print, something about acknowledging the terms and agreeing to comply with all federal site regulations, a signature line at the bottom. Read it and sign. I read it. Took maybe 40 seconds. It didn't say much more than what she'd already told me, just in denser language. I signed at the bottom and dated it November 8th. Doris took the page, checked the signature, and filed it. Van leaves in 20 minutes. Wait outside. Driver's name is Jim. He won't wait if you're late. Where do I wait? Parking lot. West side. Bureau van, you'll see it. Okay. She closed the folder and turned back to her computer. That was it. No handshake, no good luck, nothing. I picked up my backpack and walked out. The parking lot was mostly empty. A few sedans, a pickup truck with a trailer hitch, and at the far end near the dumpsters, a white van with Bureau of Reclamation stenciled on the side in dark blue letters. Same van from last night. I walked over and stood next to the passenger door, backpack hanging from one shoulder. The windows were tinted enough that I couldn't see inside. I waited, checked my pockets. Wallet still there. Checked the straps on my backpack. Still secure. The sun was climbing, but it wasn't warm yet. My breath came out in thin clouds. After maybe 10 minutes, the driver's door opened and a man climbed out. Older guy, maybe 50s, with salt and pepper hair, cut military short, and a bureau jacket zipped halfway. He looked at me without saying anything. "I'm Hudson," I said. "Doris told me to wait here." "Jim," he said. He walked around the front of the van, unlocked the passenger side, and pulled the door open. "Get in." I climbed in and set my backpack between my feet. The van smelled like diesel and old coffee. There was a clipboard on the dashboard and a half-empty water bottle in the cup holder. Jim got back in, started the engine, and pulled out of the lot without another word. We drove south out of Fallon on a 2-lane highway that cut through flat desert. Not much to look at. Scrub brush, telephone poles, the occasional dirt road leading nowhere I could see. Jim didn't turn on the radio, didn't talk. Just drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes forward. I figured I should probably say something. "How far is it?" 40 minutes, Jim said. He didn't look at me. "You do this run a lot?" "Once a week." "Picking up new people?" "Sometimes." That was it. I stopped trying. Just watched the road and the desert sliding past and tried not to think too hard about what I'd signed. We passed a ranch with a long gravel driveway and a house set way back from the road. Past a historical marker I couldn't read fast enough. Past a turnoff for some place called Stillwater. The highway stayed straight, and Jim kept the speedometer right at 60. After maybe half an hour, he slowed and turned onto a smaller road, this one paved but rougher, cracks running through the asphalt. A sign said, "La Hontan Dam, Bureau of Reclamation, authorized personnel only." Jim didn't stop, just kept driving. The road curved and I saw water. A reservoir, flat and dark under the morning sky, stretching out to low hills on the far side. The dam itself was concrete, thick and pale, with a road running across the top. Floodlights on tall poles, even though it was daytime. A chain-link fence topped with barbed wire running along the access road. Jim slowed again and stopped at a gate. There was a call box on a post. He rolled down his window, pressed a button, and waited. A woman's voice came through, crackling with static. "Identification. Fuller. Dropping a new hire. Name. Hudson Bates." A pause, then, "Proceed to intake." The gate rolled open on a track. Jim drove through and it closed behind us. That was when I felt it, this tightness in my chest that hadn't been there a second ago. The fence, the floodlights, the gate closing. I was inside now. No walking back out. Jim followed the road past a small parking area and a storage building with a faded bureau logo on the side. He stopped in front of another gate, this one smaller. Just a pedestrian entrance with a keypad lock. He put the van in park and looked at me for the first time since we'd left Fallon. "This is it," he said. I grabbed my backpack. "Thanks." He didn't respond. I opened the door and stepped out onto gravel. The air smelled different here. Water and concrete and something metallic I couldn't place. Jim pulled away before I even closed the door all the way. I watched the van drive back toward the main gate, then turn and disappear around the storage building. I stood there alone under the floodlights. It was full daylight, but the lights were still on, buzzing faintly. The gate in front of me had a camera mounted above it, lens pointed down. I didn't know if I was supposed to wait or press the call button or what. I waited. After maybe 2 minutes, I heard footsteps. A woman came around the side of the nearest building, walking fast, boots crunching on gravel. She was maybe 5'8", dark hair pulled back tight, wearing a utility jacket and work pants. She had an ID lanyard around her neck and a radio clipped to her belt. She stopped on the other side of the gate and looked at me through the chain link. "Hudson Bates," she said. Not a question. "Yeah, ID." I pulled out my wallet and held up my license to the fence. She stepped closer, studied it, then typed something into her phone. She looked up at me again, comparing my face to the photo just like Doris had. Took her time with it. "Teresa Silva," she said finally. "Site supervisor. You follow my instructions, we won't have problems. You don't, you're gone. Clear?" "Clear." She punched a code into the keypad and the gate buzzed. She pulled it open and stepped aside. "Come on." I walked through and she let the gate swing shut behind me. It latched with a solid metallic click. Teresa turned and started walking. I followed. We went along a paved path between two buildings, both concrete with narrow windows and heavy doors. Everything looked old, but maintained. Fresh paint on the railings, clean gutters, no trash. We passed another camera mounted on a pole, then another. "You'll be working intake control," Teresa said without slowing down. "Monitoring instrumentation, logging readings, radio contact with main operations, 12-hour shifts, overnight, midnight to noon." "Okay." "Your trainer arrives at midnight. He'll walk you through procedures for the first 72 hours. After that, you're solo unless there's an operational event." "What kind of event?" She glanced back at me. "The kind where you follow the laminated card and don't improvise." We reached another building, this one longer and lower with a flat roof and a steel door propped open with a concrete block. Teresa went inside and I followed. The interior was dim and cool. Concrete floor, cinder block walls painted industrial beige, fluorescent lights overhead. We walked down a hallway past a door labeled storage and another labeled electrical, authorized personnel only. At the end of the hall was a wider door with a keycard reader. Teresa swiped her card and pushed it open. The control room was bigger than I expected, maybe 20 feet by 30 with windows along the far wall looking out over the reservoir. The water was black from this angle, no reflection, just dark and still. There was a desk with 2 monitors, a radio base unit, a phone, and a keyboard. Next to the desk were metal cabinets with labeled drawers and a rack holding clipboards. On the wall to the left were valve controls, big industrial switches with red and green indicator lights. Everything hummed, low and constant, the sound of electronics and ventilation. Teresa walked to the desk and tapped one of the monitors. This one shows reservoir depth, inflow, outflow. This one shows valve status and pressure readings. You log readings every hour on the clipboard. Red binder has the procedure. I nodded. She opened a drawer and pulled out a laminated card, maybe 5 inches by 7, with text printed in bold. She slid it across the desk toward me. "These are the rules," she said. "You read them. You follow them. No exceptions." I picked up the card. It was heavier than I expected, stiff laminate with rounded corners. The text was simple, numbered 1 through 8. I skimmed it. Stuff about logging readings, radio contact, not leaving the building during shift, not adjusting valve controls without clearance. "Read it out loud," Teresa said. I looked up. "What?" "Read the rules out loud. I need to confirm you understand them." I read them. My voice sounded flat in the concrete room. When I finished, Teresa pulled another form from her jacket pocket and set it on the desk. "Sign and date." It was an acknowledgement form, same kind of thing I'd signed in Doris's office. I signed it and slid it back. Teresa took it, folded it once, and put it back in her pocket. "Your trainer is Nicholas Carter. He'll be here at midnight. Don't touch anything until he shows you how." "Got it." She checked her watch. "It's 10:40 now. You've got time to settle in. Break room is 2 doors down the hall. There's a cot in the back if you need sleep. Don't wander. Stay in this building." "Okay." She walked to the door, then stopped and looked back at me. "You need this job?" I didn't know how to answer that. Yeah. Then do what you're told and don't ask questions you don't need answered. She left. The door closed behind her with a heavy click, and I heard her footsteps fade down the hallway. I stood there in the control room with my backpack still on my shoulder, looking at the monitors and the valve controls and the black water outside the windows. The humming filled the space. Steady and low and endless. I was alone. I sat at the desk trying to stay alert without my phone. That was harder than I expected. Normally I'd check it every 10 minutes or so, scroll through nothing, look at the time, put it back down, gave my hands something to do. But my phone was still dead, and I'd left the charger in my backpack in the break room because Teresa hadn't said I could bring it in here. So I just sat there with my hands flat on the desk, listening to the steady hum of the equipment. The hum came from everywhere. The monitors, probably. The radio base unit, maybe the lights overhead. It wasn't loud, but it filled the whole room, constant and even. The kind of sound you stop noticing after a while, but that sits in your skull anyway. I kept my eyes on the windows most of the time. The water outside looked black and smooth, no ripples, no movement. Just a flat surface that went out past where the floodlights reached. It didn't look dangerous exactly, more like a blank threat. Something that could go wrong if the wrong thing happened, but was fine for now. I shifted in the chair. It was one of those old office chairs with wheels and a lever to adjust the height, but the padding was worn down to almost nothing and the armrests had cracks in the plastic. My back already hurt a little. I figured that was going to get worse over 12 hours. The clock on the wall above the monitors read 11:53. I'd been sitting here since Teresa left at around 11:15, which meant I'd burned maybe 40 minutes doing nothing. That was fine. I was good at waiting. I just wasn't great at waiting without something to look at. I stood up and stretched, rolling my shoulders back. My boots scraped on the floor. The sound felt too loud. I walked over to the windows and looked out at the reservoir again, this time standing instead of sitting. Same view, same black water. The dam was off to the left, lit up by those tall pole lights, all concrete and angles. I could see the road across the top of it and a railing on both sides. No movement, no people, just structures and water and lights. I went back to the desk and sat down. 11:56. I looked at the taped shift roster next to the left monitor. It was printed on regular paper, the kind that comes out of an office printer, and someone had taped it to the desk with clear packing tape that had yellowed a little at the edges. The tape was old. The list wasn't long. Just 2 columns, dates on the left, names on the right. My name showed up starting November 9th through the end of the page, which cut off at November 30th. Next to my name, it said intake monitoring in smaller print. The only other name on the list was N. Carter, contract guard, and that one showed up on the same days as mine, but only for the first 3 nights. After that, it was just my name over and over. That bugged me a little. I counted the names again to make sure I wasn't missing anything. Nope. Just me and this Carter guy, and Carter was only here for training. After that, it was solo. No overlap, no backup listed, no second shift person. I didn't know much about dam operations, but this felt understaffed. Not in an obvious way. More in a way that didn't match the pay or the federal site or the 6 layers of clearance I'd gone through just to get in the door. 15 an hour wasn't great, but it also wasn't terrible for monitoring work. I'd made that much at the warehouse, and that was moving pallets in 100-degree heat with no AC. Sitting in a climate-controlled room, logging numbers should have paid less, or at least the same. But this paid the same and included room and board, which made the effective rate higher. And for a federal site with this much security, I would have expected more people. Shifts that overlapped. A supervisor on site instead of just Teresa somewhere else in the complex. Something. But the roster said it was just me. I looked at the monitors. The left one still showed the same readings. Reservoir depth, inflow, outflow. Numbers that hadn't changed since I sat down. The right one had the valve status grid, all green lights, all normal. I didn't touch anything. Teresa said not to touch anything, and I wasn't about to start experimenting. I looked at the camera grid next. It was a smaller monitor mounted above the desk between the two main screens, maybe 10 inches across, with a black plastic frame that had a thin layer of dust on top. The screen was divided into 6 squares, each one showing a different camera feed. I leaned forward to get a better look. Top left, the main gate where Jim had dropped me off. I could see the chain link fence, the call box, and part of the paved area beyond it. No movement. Top middle, a service road, just gravel and darkness on both sides. Top right, another section of fence. This one along the reservoir. I could see water on one side and empty ground on the other. Bottom left, the intake channel, a concrete-lined trench with dark water running through it. Bottom middle, the pedestrian gate where Teresa had let me in. Bottom right, the parking area near the storage building with the faded bureau logo. Nothing moved in any of them. I watched for a while, flicking my eyes from square to square, trying to get comfortable with what normal looked like. That's what you did with security footage, right? You learned the baseline so you'd notice if something changed. I didn't have training in this, but it made sense. If I was going to stare at these screens for 12 hours a night, 6 months straight, I needed to know what they were supposed to look like. The intake channel had the most movement. The water slid through it at a steady pace, smooth and dark, no ripples or splashing, just flow. The main gate stayed empty. The service road stayed empty. The parking area had 2 vehicles. One was Jim's van, I thought, and the other was a dark sedan I didn't recognize, probably Teresa's. The fence cameras didn't show anything except fence and ground and a little bit of sky at the top edge. I sat back. 12:04. I heard footsteps in the hallway. My stomach tightened. I turned toward the door and waited. The footsteps were even, not rushed, boots on concrete. They stopped right outside and I heard the beep of a keycard reader. The door opened. A guy stepped in, probably late 20s, maybe 5'10", wiry build, short black hair. He wore a uniform I didn't recognize. Dark blue shirt and pants, both neat and pressed, with a patched jacket over it and an ID badge clipped to his chest. He had an earpiece clipped to his collar with a thin coiled wire running down to a radio on his belt. His eyes flicked to me, then to the monitors, then back to me. "Hudson Bates?" he said. "Yeah," I said. I stood up. Wasn't sure if I was supposed to, but it felt right. "Nicholas Carter." He didn't offer his hand, just nodded. "Contract guard. I'm your trainer for tonight." "Got it," I said. Nicholas stepped further into the room and let the door close behind him. It latched with a soft click. He moved to the desk and set down a black duffel bag I hadn't noticed he was carrying, unzipping it and pulling out a tablet and a spiral notebook. His eyes went to the monitors again, scanning them quickly, then to the camera grid, then to the laminated card Teresa had made me read earlier. He picked up the card and looked at it for a second, then set it back down exactly where it had been. "You read the protocols?" he asked. "Yeah." Teresa had me read them out loud. "Good." Nicholas pulled the second chair over from the corner of the room where it had been sitting unused. He set it next to mine, angled so he could see the monitors and me at the same time. He sat down and gestured for me to sit too. I did. "Okay," Nicholas said. His voice was low and even. Not unfriendly, but not warm either. Just factual. "This is a 72-hour rotation. I'm here tonight, tomorrow night, night after that. Then you're solo. We're going to go through everything step by step. And you're going to do it yourself while I watch. By the 3rd night, you should be comfortable enough that I'm just sitting here in case something happens. Questions so far?" "No," I said. "Good." Nicholas tapped the left monitor. "Camera numbers first. You need to know which camera is which without looking at the grid labels." He pointed at the top left square. "Camera 1, main gate. You'll almost never see anything here except Jim's weekly drop-off and maybe a bureau vehicle if they're rotating staff. Top middle. Camera 2, service road. Leads to the secondary access point on the east side, maintenance only. If you see anyone here outside of a logged maintenance window, you radio it in immediately. Top right. Camera 3, perimeter fence, north section. Should always be empty. He went through the bottom row. Camera 4, intake channel. Camera 5, pedestrian gate. Camera 6, parking area. His explanations were short and specific. No extra words. He moved his finger from square to square, and I followed it, repeating the numbers in my head. 1, main gate. 2, service road. 3, perimeter. 4, intake. 5, pedestrian. 6, parking. Repeat them, Nicholas said. I did. Got them all right. Again. I repeated them again. He nodded. Nicholas switched to the main monitors. He explained the left screen first. Reservoir depth measured in feet, updated every 15 minutes automatically. Inflow measured in cubic feet per second. Outflow the same. He showed me where the readings came from, pointing at sensors on a diagram in the red binder. Then he explained the right screen. Valve status, 12 valves total, all controlled remotely from main operations. Green meant closed and functioning. Yellow meant open and functioning. Red meant fault. If I saw red, I was supposed to radio main operations immediately and log it. You're not going to touch the valve controls, Nicholas said. He pointed at the wall-mounted panel to the right of the desk. Not unless main operations gives you direct clearance and you confirm it twice. Understand? Yeah, I said. Say it back. I don't touch the valve controls unless main operations gives me clearance and I confirm it twice. Nicholas nodded. He stood up. Manual float gauge. Come on. I followed him out of the control room and down the hallway. We stopped at a door I hadn't noticed earlier. Unmarked, just plain metal. Nicholas opened it and stepped into a narrow side hallway that smelled like wet concrete and rust. There was a small window at the end with wire mesh inside the glass, and below it, a metal panel bolted to the wall. Nicholas flipped open the panel. Inside was a gauge with a needle pointing at a number. The gauge face was printed with increments from 0 to 50. The needle sat at 32. Manual float gauge, Nicholas said. Backup measurement for reservoir depth. You check this once per shift and log it on the clipboard. It should match the digital readout within 2 feet. If it doesn't, you radio it in. Got it, I said. Nicholas closed the panel and we walked back to the control room. He showed me the radio base unit next. How to switch channels. How to reach main operations on channel 3. How to do a radio check at the start of each shift. He made me do it 3 times. Then he showed me the log sheets on the clipboard, the columns for time and date and readings and initials. Hourly, he said, every hour on the hour. You write down reservoir depth, inflow, outflow, valve status. If everything's green, you write all green. If something's yellow or red, you write which valve and what color. Then you initial it. Okay, I said. He kept going. Procedure for bathroom breaks. Radio main operations first. Keep it under 10 minutes. Lock the control room door. Procedure for emergencies. Follow the laminated card. Don't improvise. Procedure for end of shift. Complete the log. Leave it on the desk. Lock up. It's mostly waiting and logging, Nicholas said. He sat back down and looked at me. That's 99% of the job. You're going to sit here for 12 hours and write down numbers every hour and watch the cameras and nothing's going to happen. But you treat the rules like they're the real job, because the 1% of the time something does happen, the rules are the only thing between you and getting fired. Or worse. Worse, I said. Nicholas didn't answer. He just looked at the laminated card again. I sat down next to him and watched the monitors. He pulled out his tablet and started going through something on the screen, his eyes flicking up to the cameras every minute or so. I copied that. Looked at the cameras, looked at the monitors, looked at the water outside the windows. Nicholas wrote something in his spiral notebook. I didn't ask what. He checked his watch. I checked the wall clock. 12:38. The hum of the equipment filled the room again. I kept watching Nicholas out of the corner of my eye. The way he held his shoulders, tense but controlled. The way his eyes moved, cameras, monitors, door, window, back to cameras. The way he kept his hand near his radio like he expected to need it. I started doing the same thing. Didn't plan to. Just happened. The site felt too quiet to trust, and Nicholas acted like he knew that. So I figured I should act like I knew it too. He caught me watching once and didn't say anything, just went back to his tablet. I kept my eyes on the screens and tried to learn what normal looked like. At 1:13 in the morning, music started playing through the radio base unit. I didn't touch it. Nicholas didn't touch it. Neither of us moved. The sound was thin and old, like it was coming through layers of something. Not static, just distance. I couldn't place the song, but it had that warped quality of recordings from way back, maybe 40s or 50s. Instrumental. Strings, I think. Nicholas was on his feet before I processed what I was hearing. "Unplug it," he said. His voice was flat, not loud, just immediate. I looked at the radio base unit. The power light was green, channel indicator still showed 3. Volume knob hadn't moved, but the music kept playing, getting a little louder, filling the space between the equipment hum and the buzz from the overhead lights. "Don't try to identify it," Nicholas said. "Just unplug the base unit. Now." I reached for the cord. The volume swelled the second my fingers touched the plug. Not gradually. Just louder, like the sound knew I was there and wanted me to hear it better. My hand froze for half a second, and I felt the texture of the music change. Something underneath the strings that might have been voices or might have been nothing. I yanked the plug free. The music stopped. The control room went quiet again. Just the hum. Just my breathing. And Nicholas standing 2 feet from the desk with his hand on his radio like he was ready to call it in. He kept staring at the base unit, not blinking much, watching it the way you'd watch something that might move if you looked away. I set the plug down on the desk next to the keyboard. My hand was steady, but my chest felt tight. "Do I log that?" I asked. Nicholas didn't look at me. "Yeah, log it." I picked up the clipboard and wrote the time. 1:13 a.m. I wrote radio unit played audio without input, unplugged per instruction, and initialed it. My handwriting looked worse than usual. I set the clipboard back down. Nicholas finally sat. He pulled his chair closer to the desk and opened his spiral notebook, writing something in small print I couldn't read from my angle. He didn't explain what just happened. Didn't tell me if that was normal or if I'd just failed some kind of test. I wanted to ask, but his face told me not to. So I didn't. I sat there watching the monitors and trying not to look at the unplugged radio base unit sitting dead on the desk. That was it. After that, I fell into something that felt like routine, but wasn't really. More like going through motions, because I didn't know what else to do. I checked the camera feeds, all 6 squares, main gate empty, service road empty, north perimeter fence empty, intake channel showing the same dark water flowing under the floodlights, churning white where it hit the concrete edge. Pedestrian gate empty. Parking area with the 2 vehicles still sitting there. Jim's van and the dark sedan. I checked the left monitor. Reservoir depth 32.4 feet. Inflow 620 cubic feet per second. Outflow 618 cubic feet per second. Same as before. I checked the right monitor. All green. 12 valves, 12 green lights. I wrote it down on the log at 1:15 because that was close enough to the hour, and I wanted something normal to do. Nicholas kept writing in his notebook. Every 30 seconds or so, he'd glance at the camera grid, then back down. His radio earpiece stayed in. He looked tense, but I couldn't tell if that was new or just how he always looked. I got up at 1:22 and walked to the windows. The reservoir was black and still. No wind, no movement, except the intake channel to the left where the water came in. The dam road had lights, but I couldn't see anyone on it. Just concrete and railings and the far side disappearing into darkness. I stood there longer than I needed to. Probably a full minute. When I turned around, Nicholas was watching me. "You're allowed to move," he said. "I know. Just don't leave the building." "I won't." He went back to his notebook. I sat down and checked the cameras again. Still empty. I checked the monitors again. Same readings. I looked at the unplugged radio and decided not to think about it. At 1:28, I got up and went to the break room 2 doors down. My backpack was still on the cot where I'd left it. I dug out my phone and charger even though I knew the phone was dead. I plugged it into the outlet near the coffee maker and waited for the screen to light up. It didn't. Battery 2 drained. It'd take 10 minutes. I poured myself coffee from the pot someone made earlier. Probably Teresa. It was cold and tasted like burnt dirt, but I drank it anyway because I needed something to do with my hands. The break room had a clock on the wall. 1:29. I'd been on shift for an hour and a half, 10.5 hours left. I went back to the control room. Nicholas looked up when I came in, but didn't say anything. I sat down and stared at the camera feeds and tried to pretend everything was fine. The coffee was bitter, worse than I remembered. I drank it slow and kept my eyes on the screens. At 1:34, I checked the time on the monitor timestamp. At 1:36, I checked it again. Time was moving, but it felt stuck. I watched the intake channel water churn. White foam against black. The floodlights made it look fake, like a photograph or a loop playing over and over, but it wasn't a loop. The foam patterns changed. The water kept moving. I checked the time again. 1:38. Nicholas shifted in his chair and I glanced over. He was looking at the camera grid, then at his tablet, then back. His jaw was tight. I opened my mouth to ask if something was wrong, but didn't. If something was wrong, he'd tell me. That was the job. Follow the rules. Don't improvise. At 1:40 a.m., the exterior motion alert flashed. It was a red light on the panel above the right monitor. I'd seen it earlier during training, but it hadn't been on. Now it blinked twice and stayed solid red. Nicholas sat forward. I looked at the camera grid. Top row first. Main gate, empty. Service road, empty. North perimeter, empty. Bottom row. Intake channel. Water churning, same as before. Pedestrian gate, empty. Camera, 6. Parking area. A man stood at the gate. Not walking, not moving. Just standing there facing the chain-link fence about 10 feet back from it, arms at his sides. Completely still. He was wearing dark clothes. Maybe a jacket. I couldn't make out his face from the camera angle, but he looked average height, average build. Nothing distinct. He could have been anyone. But he wasn't anyone. He was just there. Standing. Placed there. That's the word that came to me. Placed. I leaned toward the intercom panel without thinking. My hand was halfway to the button when Nicholas grabbed my wrist. His grip was firm, not rough, just enough to stop me. "Don't," he said. I looked at him. His eyes were on the camera feed, not me. "There's someone. I see him. Shouldn't I ask?" "No." Nicholas let go of my wrist, but kept his hand close, ready to stop me again if I moved. "Check the laminated card. Rule 6. I grabbed the card from where it sat next to the keyboard. My hands weren't shaking, but they wanted to. I read Rule 6 out loud. If unknown persons appear on camera feeds, do not make contact. Observe and log. Radio main operations immediately if subject approaches building or remains visible longer than 5 minutes. Nicholas nodded. That's this. So we wait, and we count. I set the card down, looked back at camera 6. The man was still there, still facing the fence, still not moving. I checked the timestamp on the feed, 1:40 a.m. 5 minutes, I said. 5 minutes, Nicholas confirmed. He pulled his notebook closer and started writing. I couldn't see what, but his pen moved fast. I kept my eyes on the screen and started counting in my head. I counted in my head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. The way you do when you're a kid timing something. Stupid, but it kept me focused on the clock instead of the screen. At around 45 seconds, I looked back at camera 6. The man was still there, but the framing had changed. I don't know how else to describe it. The camera hadn't moved. I could see the same section of fence at the edges, the same corner of the parking area. But the man's face filled most of the view now, like the lens had zoomed in on its own. Or he'd gotten closer without walking. I couldn't tell which, and that made my stomach twist. His face was pale, not just white, pale in a way that looked wet under the floodlights. And he was smiling. That part bugged me more than anything. The smile was wrong. Too wide, maybe, or too even. I leaned closer to the monitor without meaning to and caught the teeth. They were small, packed tight together. Too many of them in a row, like a kid's baby teeth that never fell out. I couldn't stop staring. My brain kept trying to count them and failing. Something moved in my peripheral vision, and I flinched hard enough to knock my knee against the desk. Nicholas was standing next to me, holding a clipboard. He'd gotten up without me noticing. He positioned the clipboard carefully in front of camera 6, blocking most of the screen, and motioned with his other hand, palm down, slow and deliberate. Stop. I pulled back. Nicholas kept his hand up, still making that motion. Stop staring. That's what he meant. I got it. He set the clipboard down at an angle so camera 6 stayed half covered and returned to his seat. He didn't say anything, just picked up his pen and went back to writing in his spiral notebook like nothing had happened. I sat there with my hands flat on the desk, forcing myself not to move the clipboard. Paying attention might be the mistake. That's what I understood. Whatever that thing was out there looking at it, really looking, was the wrong move. The rules didn't say that exactly, but Nicholas knew. He'd been here longer than 72 hours. I could tell by the way he moved, the way he didn't explain. I checked the other cameras. Main gate empty. Service road empty. North perimeter empty. Intake channel still churning. Pedestrian gate still empty. I didn't move the clipboard to check camera 6 again. The clock on the left monitor read 1:43 a.m. I wrote in the log. 1:43 a.m., motion alert camera 6, subject observed, no approach, monitoring per rule 6, and initialed it. My handwriting looked shaky. I pressed harder on the next line to make it cleaner. Nicholas glanced at what I wrote and nodded once. We sat there. The equipment hum felt louder than before. I could hear the buzz from the overhead lights and a faint static from the unplugged radio base unit, even though that didn't make sense. At 1:47 a.m., I checked the timestamp again. The motion alert light had gone dark. I didn't know when that happened. I looked at the clipboard still angled over camera 6 and decided not to move it yet. At 2:00 a.m., I logged the hourly readings. Reservoir depth 32.3 feet. Inflow 618 cubic feet per second. Outflow 617 cubic feet per second. All valves green. I wrote it down, initialed it, and set the pen back in the tray. Nicholas checked his watch, then the monitors, then the camera grid. He still didn't move the clipboard. At 2:05 a.m., an alarm went off. Not loud, just a steady tone, mid-pitched, coming from the right monitor. A red banner appeared across the top of the screen with white text. Water level alert. Reservoir depth change detected. I stood up. My chair rolled back and hit the wall. The left monitor still showed 32.3 feet. The numbers hadn't changed, but the red banner stayed solid on the right screen and the tone kept going, steady and flat. I turned toward the wall-mounted valve control panel. My hand was already reaching for it before I realized what I was doing. Reflex. Something's wrong. You fix it. That was the training from every job I'd ever had. Nicholas moved faster than I expected. He stepped in front of me and put one hand on my chest. Not rough, just firm, stopping me. He pointed at the laminated card on the desk, then held up one finger. Wait. I stopped. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could feel it against his hand. Nicholas pulled his hand back and motioned toward the hallway. The side hallway. The manual float gauge. Right. The rules said to verify the manual gauge if the digital readout showed a fault or rapid change. I'd forgotten that already. I nodded, and he stepped aside. We walked down the main hallway together. The alarm tone followed us, muffled but still audible. Nicholas unlocked the side hallway door with his keycard, and I went in first. The air smelled like wet concrete and rust, stronger than before. The float gauge panel was already open. I didn't remember leaving it open. Maybe Nicholas had checked it earlier. I grabbed the chain and pulled. The float came up slowly, dripping. The needle swung and settled at 32. Same as before. I checked it twice to make sure. 32 on a 0 to 50 scale. I looked back at Nicholas. He was standing in the doorway with his arms crossed, watching me. "It's normal," I said. My voice sounded too loud in the narrow space. 32. Same as the monitor. Nicholas nodded. He motioned for me to come back, and I let the float drop. The chain rattled and went still. We returned to the control room. The alarm was still going. The red banner still flashing on the right monitor. But the left monitor showed the same number, 32.3 feet. No change. Nicholas sat down and wrote something in his notebook. Then he reached over and pressed a button on the right monitor labeled Acknowledge Alert. The tone stopped. The red banner minimized to a small red dot in the corner of the screen. He looked at me and tapped the laminated card, then pointed at the manual gauge direction in the red binder. Then he made a gesture with his hands, two flat palms facing each other, one rising and one falling, and shook his head. The system lies sometimes. That's what he meant. I sat down slowly. My legs felt unsteady. The rules exist to manage the lie. That's what I understood. The alarm wasn't real. Or it was real, but the thing it warned about wasn't happening. The manual gauge was the ground truth. The system could say whatever it wanted, but the float gauge was mechanical, physical, harder to fool. I wrote in the log, 2:05 a.m., water level alert triggered, manual float gauge checked and verified normal at 32 feet. Alert acknowledged and initialed it. Nicholas read it and nodded again. I checked the camera grid. The clipboard still covered most of camera 6. The other 5 feeds looked the same. Empty, except for the intake channel. At 2:09 a.m., someone knocked on the exterior door. 3 sharp knocks, clear and deliberate. Not frantic, just loud enough to hear over the equipment hum. I looked at Nicholas. He was already standing, staring toward the hallway. A voice came through the door. Muffled but distinct. A woman's voice. "Hudson, it's Teresa Silva. I have an inspection team with me. We need entry for a scheduled check." I stood up. That was Teresa. I recognized her voice. The same flat, directive tone from this morning. I started toward the hallway. Nicholas stepped in front of me again, faster this time. He put both hands up and shook his head hard. "It's Teresa," I said. "She's the site supervisor. She said there's an inspection." Nicholas grabbed my shoulder and pointed at the laminated card. Rule 3. I could see it from where I stood. Do not open exterior doors during restricted hours, 2200, 0600, except for confirmed emergency evacuation. But she's... The knocking came again, louder this time. 6 or 7 hits in a row, hard enough that I heard the door rattle in its frame. The voice came again, Still Teresa's voice. Still calm. "Hudson Bates, this is a direct order. Open the door. The inspection team is on a schedule." I looked at Nicholas. His face was tight. He shook his head again and mouthed one word. "No." The pounding grew louder. Constant now. Fists on metal, over and over, echoing down the hallway. And the voice started to change. Not all at once, just small shifts. The pitch rising slightly, the cadence speeding up, still saying my name, still saying "open the door," but the tone cycled through different registers. Teresa's voice, then something higher, then something lower and rougher, then back to Teresa, but wrong somehow, off by half a step. "Hudson, open the door. Hudson Bates, let us in. We need entry. Hudson, this is Teresa Silva. This is Jim Fuller. This is Doris Gomez. Open the door. Hudson." Nicholas pulled me back toward the control room. I let him. My hands were shaking. The pounding didn't stop. I backed away from the door. That was it. That was the only move I had that felt safe. The pounding kept going, and the voice kept cycling through names: Teresa, Jim, Doris, me, then something else I didn't recognize. But I walked back down the hallway to the control room and sat at the desk because doing nothing felt like the only thing I could do without breaking a rule. Nicholas followed me. He didn't say anything, just sat down in his chair and kept his eyes on the laminated card. The pounding kept going for maybe another 30 seconds. Then it stopped. The silence after was worse. I checked the timestamp. 2:14 a.m. Still hours until restricted hours ended at 6. The monitors blinked. All 6 camera feeds went black for half a second, then came back on showing the same image. Not 6 different angles, the same exact view on every feed. It was a low angle, pointed up at the intake channel edge. Concrete lip. Dark water behind it. The camera had to be right at the water line or just below it because the framing was tilted and wet. A hand pressed against the lens. Pale, dripping, fingers spread wide like it was trying to grip the camera itself. It slid away slowly, leaving streaks of water across the glass, and then a face filled the frame. It looked exactly like me. Same nose, same jaw, same tired eyes. Water running off the chin in a steady stream, hair plastered flat to the skull, smiling, too wide. Way too wide. The corners of the mouth stretched past where they should have stopped. I stood up. My chair hit the wall again, but I didn't hear it. I just stared at the monitors showing my face on every single feed, all 6 screens, all the same image, all smiling. Nicholas grabbed my arm and pulled me back down into the seat. He leaned close and said, "Cameras are bait." I didn't understand. He pointed at the laminated card. Rule 7. I'd read it earlier, but it hadn't stuck because it was vague. If Penny's smell appears, do not make contact. Open desk drawer immediately. Leave open until smell clears. I said, "What?" Nicholas said, "Follow the rule if it shows up." And then I smelled it. Sharp, metallic, copper. Like I'd bitten my tongue hard enough to bleed, except I hadn't. The taste came with the smell, coating the back of my throat. The desk drawer vibrated, not loud. Just a low hum that I felt through the chair and the floor, like something was pushing up from inside the drawer, trying to get out or get my attention. I looked at Nicholas. He nodded once and pointed at the monitors. I reached over and turned them off. Both screens went black. The vibration kept going. I grabbed the desk drawer handle and pulled it open. It slid out smooth on the track, and I left it hanging there, fully extended, because the rule said, leave it open. The vibration stopped immediately, but the sound didn't. Wet breathing, slow and rhythmic, coming from inside the drawer. I looked down. The drawer was empty except for a few pens, a stapler, and some loose paper clips. Nothing that could breathe. But the sound kept going, in and out, like lungs filling and emptying. I didn't close the drawer. Nicholas wrote something in his notebook. His hand was shaking a little. The radio started whispering. It was still unplugged, cord hanging loose on the floor where I'd yanked it at 1:13 a.m. But a voice came through the speaker anyway, thin and crackling with static. It said, "Nicholas, Nicholas, it's me. I'm outside. I need you to let me in." It sounded exactly like Nicholas. I looked at him. He was staring at the radio with his jaw tight and his hand on his belt near his own radio. The voice kept going. "Nicholas Carter, contract guard. I'm locked out. You have to open the door. It's protocol. You know the rules." Nicholas stood up. Just stood. Didn't say anything. Didn't look at me. He took a step toward the hallway. I grabbed his arm and pulled him back. Hard. He stumbled and I dragged him away from the door back toward the desk, and he didn't fight me, but he didn't help either. His eyes were fixed on the hallway and his face looked wrong. Blank. Like he wasn't all the way there. I said, "That's not you." He blinked, looked at me, then looked at the radio. The voice kept whispering, "Let me in. I'm outside. I need entry. Nicholas, please." Nicholas sat down, put his head in his hands. Didn't say anything. I checked the right monitor. It was still off. I turned it back on because I needed to see the valve status. The panel showed red. Not one valve. All 12. Flashing red in a grid. And below that, a new alert banner. Water level critical. Reservoir depth rising. I looked at the left monitor. Still showed 32.3 feet. Unchanged. But the alert kept flashing. Nicholas lifted his head. He looked at the screen, then at me and said, "It's lying." I said, "The gauge." He shook his head. "It's lying. Don't touch the valves." I kept my hands on the desk, flat, away from the wall-mounted controls. Nicholas looked at the laminated card, then at the open drawer still breathing wet and slow, then at me. He said, "The penny smell means the intake wants a name." I said, "What?" He said, "It'll take one. Doesn't matter who. Just needs a name on record." His voice was quiet. Ashamed, maybe. Like he'd known this the whole time and hadn't said it. I said, "What happens if it doesn't get one?" Nicholas said, "Other guards opened the door. Thought they were saving someone. Heard their own voice or a supervisor's voice or someone they knew. Went outside during restricted hours." He paused. "They didn't come back." I looked at the open drawer. The breathing kept going, steady and wet. I looked at the camera grid, still off. I looked at the flashing red valves that I knew were actually green because the system was lying. And I looked at the wall where the shift roster was taped. It was the only official record in this room that listed who belonged here. 2 names, Hudson Bates, N. Carter. I stood up and tore it down. The tape ripped and a corner of the paper stayed stuck to the wall, but I got most of it. I folded it in half, then in half again. Nicholas watched me. Didn't stop me. I shoved the folded roster into the open desk drawer. The penny's smell spiked immediately. So strong I gagged. Copper flooded my mouth and nose, and I couldn't breathe through it. The wet breathing inside the drawer surged. Faster. Louder. Like something had woken up or gotten excited. Then it steadied. Slower. Deeper. The paper was gone. I looked into the drawer and the folded roster wasn't there anymore. Just pens and the stapler and paper clips. Outside, the voice changed. It didn't sound like Nicholas anymore. It sounded like me. My voice. Exactly. Saying, "Hudson, Hudson, please, I'm outside. I'm cold. Let me in. Please, I don't understand what's happening. Hudson, it's me. You have to help me." The door handle rattled, not pounding this time, just the handle turning back and forth, testing the lock. My voice kept going, pleading. "Hudson Bates, please, I'm scared. I don't know where I am. Just open the door, just for a second. Please. I kept my hands flat on the desk. Kept the drawer open, kept the monitors off except the right one showing the false red alerts. Didn't touch the valves. Nicholas sat next to me staring at his notebook, writing nothing. The handle kept rattling. My voice kept begging. The wet breathing kept going in the drawer. I checked the timestamp. 2:28 a.m. 3.5 hours until restricted hours ended. I didn't move. At 4:45 a.m., the rattling stopped. The voice outside cut off mid-sentence. Just gone. The wet breathing in the drawer faded out like someone walking away. The copper smell drained from the air all at once. I could breathe normal again. I checked the right monitor. The red alerts blinked twice, then switched back to green. All 12 valves. Green and normal. The left monitor still showed 32.3 feet. I stood up and walked to the side hallway. Nicholas didn't follow me this time. I unlocked the door, walked to the float gauge, pulled the chain. 32, same as before. I walked back to the control room and logged it. 4:45 a.m. Readings normal. Float gauge verified 32 feet. All valves green. I turned the left monitor back on. All 6 camera feeds showed their normal views. Main gate, service road, perimeter fence, intake channel, pedestrian gate, parking area. All empty. I looked at the desk. The folded shift roster was gone. In its place, on the surface near the open drawer was a single coin. Wet, darkened, looked old. Maybe a penny. I didn't touch it. I closed the drawer. Nicholas packed his duffel without looking at me. At 6:05 a.m., Teresa Silva opened the control room door with her key card. She carried 2 gas station coffee cups, set one on the desk in front of me. She looked at the open drawer first, then at the coin. She picked it up, examined it, and put it in her jacket pocket. She said, "You followed the rules." I said, "Yeah." She said, "That's what the site required." I didn't say anything. She looked at Nicholas. He was standing near the door with his duffel on his shoulder, not meeting her eyes. Teresa said, "Your contract ended at 0600. You're done. Don't come back." Nicholas nodded once and left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look at me. Teresa sat down and opened the log, read my entries. Nodded. She said, "You can finish the contract if you want. You'll work solo from tonight on." I said, "No." She didn't argue, just said, "Doris will process your checkout. You're paid through today." I left in full daylight, walked out past the intake channel and the fence and the damn road with the sun coming up orange over the desert. Jim drove me back to Fallon in the white van. Didn't ask questions. I collected my pay at the temp office. Doris handed me a check for 3 days at $15 per hour, $84 after tax. I bought a replacement phone at a convenience store on the main strip. A woman named Dawn sold it to me. She had a name tag and didn't ask why I looked like I hadn't slept. I activated the phone in the parking lot and called Doris. I said, "I'm quitting. I'm not coming back for the next shift." She said, "You forfeit the room deposit and last check." I said, "I know." She said, "Okay," and hung up. I walked to the bus station and bought a ticket north with most of the $84. At 1:30 p.m., I boarded a bus driven by a man named Cooper Lucas. Tall guy, older, didn't care where I'd been. I sat in the back and kept my backpack on my knees. I stayed awake the first hour just to make sure the bus didn't turn around. Make sure I was actually leaving Nevada. I thought about the coin, about the folded roster, about my face on the monitors smiling too wide. I didn't give it a name, gave it paper instead, but I don't know if that's better. I traded paper instead of flesh, but the dam still took something. I saw what it wanted. I heard my own voice beg from the other side of the door, and I left the drawer open until it stopped. That's what I carry now.